And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, great leaders and scholars. This is Super Wednesday when we come as leaders and empower each other and inspire each other. In politics, they call umkhabulo. When we come together and just listen to each other, and as leaders, when we empower each other, we inspire each other, we correct each other, we admonish each other, we encourage each other, because leadership is very tough. Yeah, if you have not realized that, maybe on your journey, you'll soon realize that it can be very lonely, can be very arduous, and very challenging. So we created this platform as leaders to come together and just talk about leaders. Leaders talk to other leaders, or peers talk to other peers, and we have learned a lot since we've started. That is why we can't stop it, even when I'm tempted to stop it, but it's like, how can you stop something like this? So we continue and continue. That's where we are now. My name is Mazwe Majola. I'm from the Worldwide Institute of Leadership and Development. We speak leadership, we talk leadership, we eat leadership, we drink leadership, anything that has to do with leadership, we are there. And that is why we are here. We believe that leadership, it's a journey. Leadership is not a destination. If you want to be a great leader, you can never, or you cannot stop developing yourself, because you will be obsolete. That's why now and then you've got to meet like-minded. You've got to. That's why we write books, and leadership. It's not for lazy people. I'm sorry to say that. If you are lazy, you must just kiss leadership goodbye and go and sell keep, or and sell. So those who are joining from outside South Africa, there is something that I'm a keep. I'm sure my colleagues here, they will tell you exactly what it is. Yeah. We are here tonight again discussing leadership, talking about leadership, and it's a wonderful thing to be gathered together here as leaders, as scholars. We are coming from different disciplines, from universities, from public sector, from private sector, politicians, members of the media, community, religious leaders. As long as you're a leader, I mean, you belong here. This is where leadership is all about. Tonight, we are discussing, or even before I introduce our speaker, let me welcome our members and our regulars. We learn a lot from each other. You know that. That's why we are here every Wednesdays. We learn a lot from each other in our Super Wednesdays or in our master classes. We've got great leaders in this platform. Men and women I respect and admire a lot, as I've said, that we learn a lot from each other. So thank you, colleagues, for joining us every Wednesdays, or as often as you can, because obviously we know we are very busy people. You may not be able to join us every Wednesdays. And special welcome to those colleagues who are joining us for the first time. If we are here for the first time, we've never been in this platform, you are most welcome. Please feel at home. This is a safe space for leaders. We discuss, we share, we encourage each other, as I said earlier on. Please do participate wherever possible. The format is that we'll be introducing the speaker now, and then she will address us, and then only then after she has done so, we'll interact with her and with each other, as this is the conversation. Tonight, we are discussing leading with purpose, building a legacy, the story of AWCA. Sindi will tell us it is AWCA or AWCA, but to be safe, I'll say AWCA, and that is where we'll be discussing tonight. And so happy that my dear sister Sindi Mabaso-Koyana has find time to join us. A very busy businesswoman. We know her, but we are so humbled that really in her busy schedule she found time to come and to be with us tonight. Very briefly about Sindi Mabaso-Koyana, as I'm saying that most of the colleagues who are here, they know her, but we know that we are joined by colleagues from other or from outside South Africa as well in other countries. So maybe just a little bit about my sister, Miss Sindi Koyana, or rather Mabaso-Koyana. She's a CA and then is an esteemed South African business leader, chartered accountant, and advocate for women's leadership in finance and governance. She's the founder of the African Women Chartered Accountants, AWCA, organization, a groundbreaking initiative that has transformed the landscape of accounting in South Africa and opened doors for generations of Black women professionals. A respected figure in global finance, Sindi has held numerous leadership roles in both the public and private sectors. Her career spans auditing, financial management, and corporate governance, and she has served on the boards of some of South Africa's most influential institutions, very, very big companies, obviously, with humility. They have not mentioned them here, but big, big, big corporate where she serves. Her leadership has consistently championed ethical governance, social equity, and the empowerment of women in business. Through AWCA, Sindi has mentored countless young professionals and created a network that not only supports aspiring accountants, but also nurtures future CEOs and business leaders. To ensure the legacy and sustainability of AWCA and financial inclusion of women into our economy, Sindi has led the formation of AWCA Investments Holdings and recently the private equity arm, which is AIH Capital, where she is currently the managing partner, which contributes its returns to AWCA. She has recently been awarded an honorary doctorate degree by Middlesex University in the United Kingdom and named a visionary finance leader by the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants. Sis Linde, thank you so much, my sister. Once again, as I said, that we know that how busy you are, but the fact that you are with us tonight, we are so humbled, we are so grateful. You may now start addressing us. Thanks, sis. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Much appreciated. And good evening to everybody who's made time to come and listen to my very humble story. And by the way, Prof, a number of us here may be sitting here just because of the sales of amakip and tomatoes and peanuts. So let's never take those for granted. So, but anyway, I am going to share my presentation and you will guide me when it is sharing.
Perfect. Yes, it is sharing. We can see it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks, colleagues. And also thanks, Prof, for what you are doing. We do need these conversations amongst one another because they help and guide us. No one is at the end of learning. It is a continuous journey. Whilst we live, we all need to learn from one another. And I appreciate this opportunity. So you have challenged me and asked me to come up with a topic on what I need to address, and hopefully my slides are moving now. Yes, they are. And I will be talking around leading with purpose which is again the whole journey of AWCA and where it has taken us, and really a journey which I call very humble, because it has become something that we can all be proud of in building a legacy. I thought at the time where you are calling us, Prof, and I know this is not your first one. I saw you had another one a few weeks ago. But, I met people today at a board meeting who are still saying, Happy New Year. I thought under that breath of Happy New Year, where a number of us have just come out of whether we call it planning, master planning, setting goals for the year, or you call it resolutions. I know a number of people now say, I don't do resolutions anymore. But I came across these stats, which I thought I'll share with most of us, because given people who are on this platform at the moment are driven people who never start a year without being very clear around where they are going and what they would like to do. And I thought I'll share these stats around the resolutions that most of us normally, put for ourselves, that usually 23% of the resolutions get abandoned just in the first week of January, and 43 to 64% are abandoned by the end of January. And it says, within the first 2 weeks of the year, usually 80 to 88% of resolutions fail, basically leaving us with about, it says about 8 to 10% by mid-year will still be sticking to the resolutions that we would have, set for ourselves at the beginning of the year. So I'm not sure where each one of us sit, but I'm sure each one of us have decided to place ourselves. I'm not going to get into that detail. But what it said for me is that as leaders, as you indicate, Prof, when we walk this journey and the goals that we set for ourselves, what really makes them successful and what makes them stick? So what really builds the stickiness? And I thought I'll just share, I won't go through all of them. Some of them are really very simple. And one of the things that I notice in most of these engagements, sometimes it's things that we all know. We just need to remind one another. And so I thought I'm just going to share maybe just 5 of these 10 that I picked up, which are quite critical when we plan and master plan for ourselves as leaders for whether it's a year or any period ahead of us. It says we really need to shift, from resolutions to systems, and basically this means making more lifestyle decisions than resolutions. And I'm sure a number of us have already, figured that out. And the other one being making small goals, where we don't necessarily have to wait to see the whole staircase before we can actually take that first step. And the other one that is critical to make our goals stick is focusing on identity. And what this means really is that the goals I set for myself at the beginning of the year, are they speaking to who I am becoming, whom I want to be? And that is the most important thing. And if I can then maybe take another one, reduce, which is the third from the bottom, reduce distractions. We all know that it's very easy to find an excuse on why you have not been able to stick to a goal. There are many excuses. For us women, it could be children, it could be, family responsibilities, it could be many other things. In particular, those things that really require discipline, and being able to set boundaries for ourselves so that our goals indeed are successful. And maybe the last one on this slide that always speaks to me is anchoring my goals on purpose, where we anchor the goals on purpose and not just pressure, to say, how do the goals that I set and also decisions that I'm going to take during this year fit into my purpose and why I wake up every day, and what is my greater vision for myself, personally and professionally. So those are some of the key things that I thought I will share, with us. And my personal coach, a prof whom I used up to, I still have another coach, in fact, because she unfortunately is late. But one of the things I learned from my coach for years is ensuring that when I set my goals, I look at myself holistically, because I am not a linear person. So my goals need to really touch all my elements of life. I could succeed, professionally, but if socially, things are not well managed, or even my health, then I will not even be able to meet all the goals that I want to actually achieve. And most of these elements, again, I know all of us on this line are very clear. I picked this one up from the Colorado State University's website on well-being, and the one that really spoke, the few that spoke to me, because most of us will have financial goals, will have physical goals. Most of us love the physical goal when the year starts, but the one that really has spoken to me over the few years is emotional, to say, how do I plan to invest in my emotional well-being and my mental strength for the year? What are the things that I am going to do so that when the curveballs hit me during the year, I am able to wave them? So that one is a very critical one for myself, and obviously the actions are what is important around that. I will do my early morning meditation, and all those different things that will ensure that my emotional goals that I've set are met. I'll pick another one, intellectual, is that how do I stay on top of my professional game? I am going to read thought leadership, for example, in private equity, because that is a space that I'm in as a chartered accountant. I will attend a conference, or I will make sure that, on leadership, I will attend Prof. Mazwe's sessions to make sure that I keep myself stimulated. But most importantly, it's also making sure that I deepen my knowledge in the area that I have chosen to make my name in. And I've got a number of actions that I've highlighted in that space. And maybe the last one out of this circle is occupational. And the reason why occupational is different to intellectual is, again, to say, yes, I am happy with the work that we are doing. We have raised so much funding in our private equity. So this year we need to make sure that we meet the milestone on the funding that we need to ensure we would have raised. And we need to make sure that at least we've closed 3 deals. Those are the kind of things. And that then puts the discipline for me to say, what am I going to do? If I want to close 3 deals this year, what am I actively going to do? So this for me has been really a very helpful framework that I have used in my journey, as a leader. But again, I can't make my own personal goals in a vacuum. And I thought I will share with us, because as leaders, leaders in South Africa, leaders outside of South Africa, there's another environment that we find ourselves in. Beginning of the year, a number of our leaders come together in Davos at the World Economic Forum and set the tone for the globe. So it is important that even when we make our personal goals, for example, I speak about the occupational goals that I have. It is important that I understand what is the globe setting as a tone for this year, because if say, for example, energy is a big issue, I am then going to make sure that that is the area we're going to look for deals and invest in renewable energy deals, because that is the a big area that has been mapped at the World Economic Forum. But one thing, looking at where we are setting the tone globally, but what are the takeaways for South Africa, and just bring it closer to ourselves. And I then picked these up, from the BCG thought leadership on key takeaways from the World Economic Forum, in particular for South Africa. But even before we come to South Africa, the indication that the global systems are fragmenting. Everybody is going into their own silo, and promoting nationalism, but also the issue of us as emerging markets. Where do we then place ourselves? And it says that in emerging markets with institutional trust and policy certainty will be the ones that will attract capital. And that for us became very important, being in investments, being in private equity. And so these were highlighted as the top 5 takeaways for South Africa. The governance credibility, which is quite critical. We've had a number of governance lapses in our government institutions, and the work that is being done to restore respect for our institutions through all the commissions and understanding where did things go wrong. So that is going to be very important for South Africa, but making sure that whatever comes out of it, we are seen to be taking action. The energy transition execution is one of them. Inclusive growth strategies. We are in a country with very high levels of unemployment, very high levels of inequality. So when we want to lead as leaders, what are we doing in these spaces and making sure that we contribute positively to them? Issues of policy stability and obviously talent development. And talent is not just behind the desk, it's also deepening our knowledge and the work that you're also doing, Prof. And focusing on South Africa, another benchmark that has been very important that I have been following each time I look at, I need to present, not just in South Africa, but also globally, is there's a barometer, the Edelman Trust, and I'm sure maybe some of our colleagues are familiar with it, where this is a not-for-profit organization, global organization that usually measures the different governments and how they are trusted by their nationals. And unfortunately, South Africa features amongst the countries which have got trust issues, where the government has got trust issues with its people. But one of the key takeaways that the Edelman Trust has, summarized some of the themes that have come from the work that they do on an annual basis. The 2026, setting the tone for 2026, they've indicated that they are seeing global retreat into insularity. And the insularity is exactly what came out of the World Economic Forum, that everybody wants to insulate themselves and only work with a trusted partner. And this issue of, again, globalization, where there's level engagement, is starting to be eroded, to say, who you are watched at whom you are aligning with. As a result, countries are trying to insulate themselves and not want to be seen to be aligning, lest they be ostracized from a trade point of view. And which is the same thing around deepening polarization, and grievance. And we are seeing, again, the rise of a fear of economic insecurity, which is leading from, could our country be ostracized just because we are seen to be partnering with this particular country? So these are some of the things that are actually, coming up through the studies of the Edelman Trust Barometer. But what was actually interesting, when they say South Africa is amongst the countries that have got trust deficit with their communities, one of the things that they've indicated is that, we all know that probably about a decade ago, most countries trusted their governments more than they trusted business. Business was always untrusted. They are capitalists. They want to take away from the people. They want to take away from an ordinary person. But it is very interesting that actually government is now the least trusted in most of the countries, and business is scoring even higher. But what is also coming up as a higher institution of trust are the NGOs, civil societies. So, which means the work that we do within our communities, the work that we do in associations of our, say, maybe professional associations, that is where there is more trust than people are actually trusting governments, which then highlights the responsibility on each one of us as leaders, in that whilst we are chasing our professional goals, what are we doing to create the legacy, Prof, that you wanted me to talk about, to create the impact that we make whilst we are chasing our own professional goals? And this is what then brings us to the story of AWCA. And I thought I'll just share with you, what actually led to it, the past. Because for me, as a chartered accountant, it is important to share that the Institute of Chartered Accountants in South Africa was first established in 1880. But as a female, the first female, Elizabeth Kruger, was only admitted in 1917 after a big fight. She had started asking to be admitted to the Institute of Chartered Accountants around 1915, but finally was admitted in 1917 because she actually qualified in 1915. It took 70 years for a first Black female chartered accountant, Sis Nonkululeko Gobodo, to then qualify as a chartered accountant in 1987. And then, by God's grace, I qualified in 1995, which was again about 8 years later. So that journey and that qualification in 1995, if I may, just go back to it, is that it was after my fourth attempt trying to be a chartered accountant because of that board exam, really driven by the fact that it is a business, degree, and most of us grew up not having business conversations at our dining room tables, if we even had tables, because we always sat on the floor. So this is then what led to my purpose, because realizing having to pass it the fourth time, I had to look back at what eventually assisted me in passing and what were the elements that were challenges along the way. This is why in 2002, 4 of us decided to form the African Women CAs, because we realized that we would not want another young girl to go through some of the challenges that we went through. For us to become chartered accountants and have an association that assists in the journey. And to make sure that our work will be sustained and we build this legacy, we then decided that we will form an investment holding company, which was going to assist us in ensuring that there will be an endowment for AWCA and make sure that it lasts even long before some of us will be gone. The investment holding company, basically, the language that most of us know, we were positioning ourselves as a Black woman-owned BE company. But again, BE is not easy. BE is tough, especially from a fundraising point of view. And this is what then led to the formation of the private equity fund, which was going to assist us in making sure that even when we identify deals, we are seen to be real business owners because we would have paid for the investments that we are getting into. So I thought I'll just share briefly this, the journey of AWCA, because even though it is not just our own doing, but when we started AWCA in 2002, there were only about 400 400 Black women CAs, and that 400 included Black, Indian, colored. The Africans were actually even around less than 100 at the time. When we then, up to today, with the last time we did a calculation, Black women CAs are now sitting around 15,000, which is the work that we have contributed to. It's still a small number. The total number of chartered accountants in our country, for the economy of our size, we only have 60,000, about 63,000 CAs in our country, and about 15,000 of those are Black women CAs. So what we realized was important in growing the number of Black women CAs in our country. We needed to go back to the schools where we were and just do school visits, so that that girl in the township, in the rural areas where we came from, realizes that actually there is a CA that I can touch that came from where I came from. A lot of work has been done there. We can now see visibly the number of Black women CAs in our country. It's actually become one of the professions where every other professional you come across, and even our children, most kids are now signing up for being chartered accountants. It's become a popular career. In our time, it was not popular at all. We stumbled into it, a few of us, and stumbling into it in the real sense, because even doing mathematics higher grade was something that we did not realize, that had we not done mathematics higher grade, would not have been able to do a BCom degree, and no one was telling us that. So it was, the journey of AWCA was just simple. And again, talking to this thing of starting small, you don't need to see the full staircase, because where we have landed with the investment holding company and the private equity, I can tell you now, put hand to heart, we never thought we'll be where we are today. We really started small. Each one of us, go back to your school, go and walk those corridors and talk to those young girls. Tell them to, in addition to forget boys, tell them to do maths higher grade. We started a bursary fund, and today we even now have student chapters at universities, and we have mentorship program. And by the way, our mentorship program is not only at a school or university level, it cuts across the entire value chain, because even those who are senior and professionals in their own right are part of a mentorship program. Nurture. We run, in addition to mentorship, we run workshops where we assist our our young women in how do you prepare for the board exam, so that you don't have to do it 4 times like Sindi Mabaso-Koyana. How do you prepare yourself to make sure that you pass a board exam first time? And a few other professional development programs that we run with Duke University and Fordham University in the US, and what we call Power Spaces. And Power Spaces is almost like the space that you have created here, Prof, where it is about discussing some of these, having these powerful conversations amongst ourselves, including the lead, category is again amongst all of us, to make sure that there's continued professional education. A number of women are now on boards. How do we make sure that they're board prepared? And also, not every CA now wants to do auditing. Not every CA wants to stay in the corporate world. They are becoming entrepreneurs. Some of us got into this entrepreneurial space having not been entrepreneurs, before. So we also have an entrepreneurs forum. So these are the programs of AWCA, which continue today. And again, in the story of legacy, Prof, if you could go onto the website of AWCA today, you will see the young women that are running AWCA. I haven't been involved. The last time I was the president of AWCA is about maybe 10 years ago. AWCA is 23 years old now, and it continues to run, and they've gone and done things beyond what we had planned we wanted to do. But what I then moved on to do, so this is the Passion magazine, which comes out once in August, where we honor a woman of substance, but it is a big fundraiser for us, where we honor an icon in our country who is not just a well-known or an impactful businesswoman, but someone who also does things for others. So I thought I'd just give the snapshot as well, to demonstrate how tangible we have commercialized the journey of AWCA. So AWCA Investments, when we started it in 2008, again, as I say, it was going to be a BE company. Most of us were still carrying on, as working on a full-time basis somewhere else. And we said AWCA Investment Holdings will be a passive BE company. So most of the deals that we ended up doing around the time were small, like 1%, 5% here, because we were tag-alongs. We were not actively and proactively, looking for deals. It's only later, around 2012, where we decided we were going to run AWCA, the investment holding company, proactively. And what was great is that at this stage, before we raised the private equity fund, which I'm going to come to now, most of the running of AWCA Investment, was self-funded by all of us, the women CAs that became shareholders in AWCA Investment Holdings. No institution was a shareholder and is a shareholder, which made sure that we preserved our 100% Black women ownership. It was not easy, though, I can say, but also, secondly, the deals that we then did at the time were mainly vendor finance. So we always had to depend on, because Hollard needed to do business with government, Bidvest Protocol needed to do business with government, so they needed BE. So we'd say to them, well, you need to facilitate it, and facilitate our participation. However, the BE space has become quite wide and very competitive. There are now BE companies that are able to pay for their investments, because there have been many waves of BE and people have gone and sold their investments and made money. So now you do have BE companies that have got their own strong balance sheet and they can invest in their own right. So that now became a challenge for us to say, even though we were finding good deals, we're no longer, vendor financing where companies were facilitating were becoming far and less. And that is what then led us to setting up our own private equity, which is AIH Capital. And in AIH Capital, we've been able to raise funding from pension funds to say we will invest not just for ourselves, but also with the pension funds. So once we've got this pot of money, in 10 years' time, we must take it back to the pension fund, obviously together with a return. But then that return will be shared with us as the manager, where we had been given this pot of money to manage and find good deals to invest in. So which then takes away the saying we're only doing this because we are BE. We are now proper entrepreneurs and proper investors, because we are investing not just for ourselves, but for our funders, in this case being the pension funds. So to date, we've got 2 deals that we have done in the private equity firm, Future Growth Asset Management and High Duty Castings. They do castings for the auto industry. And in the pipeline, we've got another deal in food processing, mining technology, and medical equipment. What is important about the commercialization of the investment side is that any return, 10%, goes to AWCA. So this is not entirely for the individuals, but that it will go back to AWCA. So just to share briefly, Prof, I don't know how much time I have, in that when you look back and say, by the way, because I've been asked this question so many times, to say, oh, Sindi, you had the vision. To be honest, where one lands today, you look back and you say, I was just wanting to give back to my community. Then we realized it was difficult because there were so many professional organizations, be it BMF, be it AWSA, where we'll go to corporates looking for donations for the programs we were running. And we realized that how do we make sure that we get the funding? And that is how we started the investment holding company. So we then need to compare as leaders. We can be successful in our own right, but how do we then use our success that it impacts and deepens such that that success is not just for myself or my family, but touches a broader community and also be felt and reverberate across the country. And also, with humility, I am so thankful that an institution in the UK called and said, we are seeing the work, come and share with us and submit a paper on how do you change the narrative of an NPO AWCA, into where it is today, where it is, you change it one investment at a time, as we called it. And looking at it, success as we all know it, requires obviously for us to be qualified, we study, it requires competence and be excellent and do what we do very well. It gives us financial independence and we come up with these very big titles and positions. And because we are intelligent, right? We get knowledge and we apply it so that we can, in our vocations, so that we see ourselves to be successful. But and we can even become wealthy in the process. And so when all of that is done, so what? And for me, one of the things that also pushed me very early in my career in going deeper than, I was again fortunate to be a CFO at Transnet at a very early age, I had just turned 30. And when you are no longer a CFO of Transnet that, the country knows you as, who are you behind the title? It forced me very early in my life. And whilst that journey was very difficult, it was a beautiful gift because it forced me to say, okay, Sindi, how do you approach life? How do you approach, relationships? Do you approach them as your title? What happens when it's gone? So the importance of knowing who I am and who I am really, not my title, was something that I started investing in, very early in my life, and it continued to be a journey. And the importance of the clarity of purpose. Today, as a managing partner at AWCA Capital, most private equity firms, Prof, they fund us back individuals. They say, okay, Sindi and Prof, we believe in you, go and form this private equity fund. Private equity doesn't do broad-based, but AWCA Capital is one of the few private equity firms which have got broad-based, which is AIH that has got more than 50 shareholders, and AWCA that today has got more than, it has thousands of members who are beneficiaries of the private equity. And for me, that is something that really drives me and gives me the purpose why I wake up every morning, and having that passion beyond the pay. If I can tell you the journey of the investment holding company, that for the few years, I mean, AIH now, the investment holding company, is 18 years this year. We only started taking directors' fees the last 5 years. For the first 13 years, we're actually not taking a salary. We're running AIH because there was a vision and the purpose behind it. We were doing it so that AWCA is a lasting entity or organization, NPO, that will last beyond all of us. Making those sacrifices and having that spirit of service. And so that is what I believe moves and shifts each one of us. We may be successful in our professions, but how do we make sure that in a country like ours, where really, what does it matter to be successful on your own when you know you're going to drive through the traffic light and the reality of your country is going to hit you in your face? So that is something that really has been quite fulfilling for me to see where we have come, and being able to live for that higher ideal. And again, briefly, Albert Einstein says only a life lived for others is a life worth living, because otherwise, so what? And Les Miserables, which is a movie, I won't go into the details now because we're running out of time, where Victor Hugo, concludes by saying life is to give, not to take. Because you can imagine in a world where each one of us wants to take and not give into it, the center will never hold. And that is the mindset that if we all live with it, and I'm very thankful that it through my own journey, it has created a core and the centerpiece of who I am. The gentleman, and I tried to find a female one, but again, we all know our own Madiba, who has lived for a higher ideal. And the reason why I've put Chris Barnett here is to say, again, the success and significance. My coach says, so what's the difference? What makes one person in a class of medicine, one person finds it necessary to go and understand how to do a heart transplant? What differentiates those people? Because you can be successful and just be a doctor, but what is the difference from a class of engineers and in the UK and in Paris, where Philip Cosette in Paris and Graham Fagg in London decide they were engineers, a class of engineers, but only one in each of them creates and builds the Eurotunnel. It's understanding what are those differences, what drives those people who beyond, we've all qualified, but I'm going to go and do something different. And that is something that I'm spending a lot of time in understanding what causes that, what drives it, such that even when challenges hit, you will stay the course. I'm not going to go into this, but I just want to, I did discuss this briefly with my prof, that last year at our strategy session at AIH Capital, and it's a team of 8, by the way, and I said, in our strategy session for success, what are the key things, the 7 G's of leadership, which I came up with, this, drafting them so that I could discuss them with the team, beyond us being strong technically, beyond us finding the deals and doing them great and making good returns. What is it that must underpin an AIH and make it stand out? Are these 7 G's? And the reason why I said them, by the way, it's not because I have them. It's because I aspire to have them, where I'm always in gratitude, where I always have grace and be kind. And also in particular, when we have the history that we've had, it is very easy when we've achieved what we've achieved to be impatient and be hard and tough on others and lack grace and mercy and support those who come behind us, because you say, but I did it, under difficult circumstances. And I had to dig deep in my heart, Prof, for this, because again, when we start leading millennials, oh my goodness, those people are challenging us, and your Gen Zs. And so this is why I had to then say, let's have the grace, let's have the grit, and the gravitas, and continue doing what we do with maturity, with respect. Let us be respected in what we do. And be grounded, even when the grounded came because we had just declared a first dividend in AIH Capital, and we were also excited. But I said we still need to be grounded because the journey continues, and be generous in our lives. We make our profits, but we need to give it to AWCA and even the communities around us. And the final one being governance, where governance is not just frameworks that we write. Some of us are trained and under, with ethics. We have to study the code of ethics as chartered accountants. But at the end of the day, when you look at some of the governance lapses that have happened in our country, and in particular in the public sector, I've also had to make an introspection and say, what drives that? It's clear that it is not just what are the rules. but it's also the value system with which we are brought up. And it also means the responsibility for each one of us on how we are bringing our own children. Thank you very much.
Wow, perfect, my sister. Thank you so much. Wow, what shall we say? Wow, what shall we say? Maybe you can do better than that, ladies and gentlemen. Why don't we just find that icon there? That it's yes. I can see it coming. Thank you so much, Dr. Sindi. What a powerful masterclass you've taught us. Really. You have empowered us tonight, but let me not waste any time so that our colleagues may be able to ask some few questions with you. I see a question there in the chat room. I think it's from my brother there, Dr. Mike, which I will ask him to ask you. Let me ask first, then Dr. Mike will be I'll ask him to ask you a question after that, and then it's open, ladies and gentlemen, those who want to engage my system. So you kept on saying BE is not easy. It's very, very difficult, especially for Black people, especially for raising funds. And there's so many people who are out there, whether it's AfriForum or Solidarity or others, who just feel that BE is so easy. People who are there, you just know someone, and then someone knows someone, and then you are connected, and then we are in there. How are the complexities and in BE in terms of, obviously, I know that is a big topic that needs more explanation, but in particular, as you are saying, that it's tough, it's not easy in the BE space. What your thought is?
There's so many elements, Prof, around BE. It is really about the mindset, in the sense that it is seen as if we are coming to take from someone who believes, I started my business on my own, now I need to give something to these people. you know. And unfortunately, what we don't realize is that in a country where our, at the wake of our democracy, whilst there was the liberation, but reality on the ground, and we still see it today, is that economically we are still far behind. And also in that business of an entrepreneur, we are saying to be partners. When government says, I am happy to do business with a truly South African business, what we need to realize is that we are also growing the cake. It's not just about saying, so if we have a mindset shift that is saying, yes, you are selling a portion of your business, it is because you want to grow the business and get business in areas that naturally would not have been received. And also do, and one of the challenges, obviously, is that even in that space, you then get treated as you just a BE partner. You are not an entrepreneur. You are not a partner of many. So it has become very important for us to be able to raise the funding, because whilst vendor financing is important and it assists in facilitating you participating, because vendor finance is that the very same company you are buying into are the ones who fund you. And one thing I have noticed, it becomes very difficult to bring in real transformation in organizations like that, because it's almost like you still don't own this company, by the way, I've vendor financed you. So the importance of raising your own funding and buy into the businesses as an entrepreneur empowers us meaningfully. And also, it's incumbent on us that once we get into those businesses, we also need not be happy just being shareholders. There's a space in just being an investor. No harm in that. We are not all going to be the ones who go in and invest, or rather, and be operators. But if you are that kind of an investor who is only sitting at a high level and not learning the business that you have invested in, then make sure that there is a pipeline of Black people who understands that business. You see, Prof, one of the things that pain me in our country is that we once had the arms deal, but I don't know how many military engineers did we create around that time. We did all we had to prepare for the 2010 World Cup, and a lot of procurement went into transport, the railways. Today, we need to be having fully fledged Black-owned rail engineering companies. So those are some of the things around. It is also it takes two to tango. We probably also, there are things that worked with BE and the things that did not work. And it's sad that now, those who are wanting for us to dump BE are only focusing on the elements that have not worked. There are great entrepreneurs in this country that have come up because BE enabled it. Most of us sitting on this web will not be here if there was no employment equity and got some opportunities because our government was the enabler. So I still believe that the policy itself is not a problem. We need to be very clear ourselves on what do we want to see. What does the end look like? What we see today is definitely not the end. We can't say there is no space for BE.
Perfect. Thank you, my sister. Thank you very much. Dr. Mike Masiapato, over to you, my brother. Are you still here? Dr. Mike addressed us last week. He's a CEO of Border Management Authority. I was happy when the president touched a little bit about it, Dr. Mike, but we are not going to get there tonight. We'll do that when we do analysis. When you do some analysis. Over to you, my brother. Are you still there?
No, that's great. No, thanks, Prof. What an inspiration. Dr. Sindi, very much powerful masterclass that we got today. Just a quick one. Dr. Sindi, just in a simplified version, and I think this is what you have done is very powerful. And I do know that most of us who started in the way you did, which is CFO inside a government SOE, you then had to exit that space and transition into entrepreneurship. So what I want you to actually share with us is, how did you really manage that particular aspect of the transition? You know, it is something that you planned over the years and say, I'm going to push at least 5 years, and then I'm going to secure some kind of a personal balance sheet, so that when I then transition, because there's no 100% guarantees on the other side. I mean, you might actually transition and things get hectic that side, and you default into, I don't want to call it poverty, but you default into hardship. So how did you manage that transition and ultimately become this successful at this point? Thanks.
No, thanks, Dr. Mike. It's a journey. I wouldn't even say one is successful yet. However, let me say that it was not a pull factor where I planned to be in the space where I'm in. It was a push factor. After I qualified as a CA, I was very passionate about the public sector. And because for me, it was an environment where we needed to give back. I still wish for a time in our country where we are like Singapore, where the best, go to the public sector. And because if that framework is strong and firm, everything else flows, thereafter. The public sector was my preferred space of employment. We all know the challenges in the public sector. And so for me, it was a push factor. I didn't plan.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It seems like colleagues are preferring to write on the chat room tonight, but as you can see that I am allowing you to express yourself if you're comfortable. Kilebogile, you can express yourself if you are comfortable, and also Tato. Otherwise, we can read your questions. But obviously, we are leaders here. When you express yourself, we seem to be understanding more than when it is written. Would you like to say something, over to you?
Hi, Dr. Sindi. Hi, Prof. I think my question is a bit clear in the chat, but this one was very personal, Dr. Sindi, because I'm also a CA, and I'm really looking into entrepreneurship because for some of us here, we don't really grow within the corporate space, and you see opportunities that you really need to grab outside of corporate and so forth. So I really, this is a very personal question, and I'd really like to hear more about your journey and really what were the intentional and active steps that you took to transition from being a CFO into being, Sindi the brand and really building up to where you are right now.
Maybe just quickly, because to then share the journey might take long. We need to be ready to make sacrifices. So as I said, we took a long time not earning, not taking any salary. We did not have offices. We worked from my home's dining room table for a very long time. We had to work at some point. We squatted in my husband's office for some time. The second thing is having like-minded people, people who are aligned with you and your vision and your values, that says, yes, you are creating BE, but it is not about quick wins. We're all building a legacy, and it's not just going to be for us. So that became very important for us. We've got largely CAs in our organization, but I can tell you, not one of them earns a market-related salary. They are fulfilled by what they are doing. To be able to set up a private equity firm from scratch, we had never been in private equity. Only one of our directors had been. Otherwise, we worked on setting up a private equity, something that we had not done before. And that is the learning, and that's the fulfillment that each one of us, had to gain. So the importance of, and then having a support system in each one of us. It's important that you've got a support structure from your family, because very few of us will start businesses with reserves that are unlimited. That is, again, the challenge of the Black person in our country. And this is why, Prof, the issue of BE is very painful. The issue of selling amakip of tomato is that whilst we are strong entrepreneurs as Black people, because most of us came from that environment, but it was always from hand to mouth, because it was a livelihood thing than a wealth generation issue. So the support becomes very important. Otherwise, that's where we then see issues of mental health and some challenges. But it is indeed a tough journey.
Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Sindi. Tato, are you able to express yourself there? Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Dr. Sindi, and good evening, leaders. I think that last point that you just made regarding mental health, my question is around that space, particularly on the personal strategy for self-development that you shared with us. I think it's the aspect of emotional intelligence, or dealing with emotions, and the practices that one has to adopt as a leader to support themselves and as part of self-development. Can you just say a bit more about it? You browsed just at a high level when you spoke about the emotional aspect, but why is it so important as a leader to develop that aspect, and what practices can we as leaders adopt or explore? Thank you.
Thanks. it's very important because the social capital, or we could call it relational capital, is very important as a leader. We are now not in the era, the previous eras of autocratic leadership, where it is my way and that's it. So the collaboration is very important, and you can only learn the art of that if your EQ is elevated higher than your ego. That is very important. And also as a leader, we need to cultivate, for us to be impactful and build lasting organizations and institutions is when we've got a fellowship that believes in what we do and not just because we say so. And that for me, it's because it's a continued area of growth. It's a continued area of leadership because, I hear it a lot. It's very easy for us as leaders to become impatient. It's very easy for us to actually wear our titles in our, in our heads and our hearts. And again, that is driven by the fact that no one person in a team is less important. Because if that one person who is whether it is a driver or it is someone who picks up your children, they enable you to succeed. So not one person must be undermined in terms of what they contribute, because we're sitting here, someone is looking after something else that is very important to us, in addition to learning around leadership. So that is a big thing, for me. And maybe again, it is probably one of the challenges I had where I learned very fast that I cannot hang on my title, because 1 minute I was CFO of Transnet, next minute I was just Sindi. So I needed to make sure that I can stand as just Sindi. And that experience also taught me how not to treat people as a leader. It was a great gift because I knew, I could pick that, yes, you do learn from difficult leaders, but at the end of the day, there's a threshold where it stops being learning, but where you can break people. And so for me, that was something that I learned along the way.
Perfect.
But it's not easy because you do get challenged. But if you are conscious and conscientious, it is very important. Even when we falter, we are able to actually go back and say, I know I shouldn't have dealt with this in that manner. You actually grow. There's continuous growth in you as a person if you invest in leading self more, because we're very much we want to control others, but the most important person to control is yourself. But that's a very difficult person to control is self. We can easily control others. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I wrote a book a few years ago, The Power of Self-Leadership. And in that book, exactly what I'm saying, Dr. Sindi, that the most difficult person to lead, it's yourself. It's not the other people. So it starts with you. If you can lead yourself, then you can lead others. It's so true. Let me just check down the chat room, and then we'll draw to a close. But we have those who are we've taken the questions. Sisilindelwa. Okay, before I get to Sisilindelwa, it's Reverend Bonoy there. Good evening, Prof. and leaders. Excited to be part of today's masterclass here with my wife tonight. Unfortunately, we'll skip before the close. We are attending Ash Wednesday. I'm sure it's left already. Thanks, Reverend, for being here. And then Sisilindelwa, thank you for being a good example of Black excellence. We've done Libukhile, and then Reverend Bonoy again. Remarkable woman of God. Your social advocacy is admirable. I see you writing a book on this. Yeah, you see the prophet. It's a prophet or it's a confirmation. I see writing a book on the 7 Gs, living with a purpose is a key driver of understanding your calling. Be the light and salt in the world. What is next, Dr. Mabaso-Koyana? Prof, as you say. So that book, let's talk about it. The reason why we laugh between me and Dr. Sindi, because we were exactly discussing about that book on 7 Gs. So Reverend Bono is that definitely that book is, and now that is confirmed in this platform, Dr. Sindi will make sure that we publish that book for you.
That's
we have to do it. We have to do it. We have to do it. And then we've got Tato. Then we had Tato, my brother there, Victor Songelwa. Congratulations, Dr. Mabaso-Koyana, and thank you for the informative and inspirational presentation. African Women Chartered Accountants is now a force to be reckoned with, and may it grow from strength to strength. Thank you, Prof. Majola, for always bringing in the best. Thanks, my brother, God, and then else, Hulufelo, so profound. My brother, very good news. It's good news here. Are you here? Good. Oh, okay. Anyway, it's here because it's written. My brother, good news. Consciousness, conscious and leading self. All these other things will be given to you. Thank you. Tato, again, you are the embodiment of a resonant leader. Thank you. And then my brother there, wow, Dr. McLean Sibanda, so good to see you. My brother, he's the one who will tell you more about the early stages when we started this platform, because he was here and he supported us a lot and he was very active. We must write a book. we must write a book, Dr. Sibanda, how the platform started. But thank you so much to be here, my brother. Dr. Sibanda said, thank you very much, Sis Sindi, for sharing your inspirational journey. We see what you are doing and are profound of you. Thank you very much. Sis Sindi, here are the comments. Maybe if I can ask you, Dr. Tumamangisa, when I'm closing you, okay, there's the last one I'm reading, and then I'll give it to Dr. Mangisa said, great sacrifice indeed, my good doctor. It's never easy to be an entrepreneur, let alone a successful one. Yes, thank you so much. May I ask you, Dr. Sindi, to give us your parting shots, your closing remarks, and then we close the session after that. Thank you, sis. Thank you very much.
No, thanks. Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate it. I mean, these kind of sessions always, test us too, because it's a moment of reflection. So it's also a gift to me. So I want to say thanks to everybody and to just give, us your ear. I mean, one of my favorite things to that question, around leadership and investing in self is that, and maybe that's the example I used about Dr. Chris Barnard and Graham Fagg and our own Nelson Mandela, is that we can all have our qualifications, which will definitely open doors. But the reason why it's important on leadership and leading self and developing ourselves continuously, investing in emotional intelligence, it's because that is what will keep us there when the doors are opened. But most importantly, that is what will elevate us and make sure that we actually have an impact. Because I can't see an impactful leader. Probably there is one who's impactful, but it was not leading themselves and was destroying. But I'm a firm believer that what we give in life, we do meet one way or the other. And, all of us here will know what you sow is what you reap what you sow. So it is something that I truly believe in. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much, my sister. Once again, You've really empowered us tonight, inspired us. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, we've got our YouTube channel. You'll find this material in our channel. So visit our channel and subscribe there. You've got all sorts of material there on leadership, even a lot of our past sessions that you'll find there. So do visit or do subscribe and visit our so that you can reference and read. You know, sometimes listening to something once you may not remember everything, but if you keep on going there and listen and watching, then you get the principles and they stick with you and they stuck with you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Sis, Dr. My good sister, hey, but that challenge, we're definitely going to take now that to publish that book. If Professor, definitely, absolutely, if Professor Zita was here, he will even be giving us a target that before the end of the year, that book must be out, which I agree, we can definitely do that. So thank you. Since we know that you're so busy, my sister, but thank you so much for just making time to be with us here. And really, we know it's not your first time. We are very familiar with this platform. You've addressed us many a times, and thank you so much that whenever we invite you, you make time to come. Yeah, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, sis. Ladies and gentlemen, special for those who joined us for the first time, please do remember that we meet every Wednesday. Next week, Wednesday, we are here, same time, same place, same login details, same everything, and we'll be having another super bumper Wednesday with another great speaker discussing a wonderful topic. So do join us again next week. As we always know that, or as we see, that there's no way you'll attend this session and will never be empowered. It's what we do every Wednesday. Thank you so much. The session is adjourned now until we meet until next week. Wednesday, I have not done Zanele. Okay, until we meet again next week, Wednesday. May God bless you. Kosi Sigelen Africa. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week, Wednesday. Thank you. Bye.